The girl was born with a strange body odor, so strong that even her own parents wouldn't come within 10 meters of her. They locked her in the stables and raised her like livestock for 10 whole years. When the 10 years were up, they simply threw her into the mountains to fend for herself. Because of her smell, she couldn't even enter the village, let alone buy supplies. The only option was to occasionally sneak back to the castle and beg her family for scraps. And so she survived another 10 years in the wilderness all alone. On this day, just like so many times before, she returned to ask for food. But her cruel younger sister made things especially difficult. With a sneer, she tossed her a single gold coin and told her to buy it herself. In the end, Layla had no choice but to return to her tiny wooden shack, empty-handed and defeated. This time the blow was too much. Her will to go on was crumbling. Just then, a stranger knocked on her door, his voice breaking the silence. It was the first time Layla had ever been this close to another human being. Even when her father came to visit, he never let her open the door, always speaking from a distance. But this man acted like nothing was unusual, completely calm and composed. He wore a gentle smile, showing no sign of fear or disgust. "Dear lady, thank you for opening the door. I was out hunting and got lost in the rain. May I come in and rest for a while?" Layla hesitated. She hadn't seen much of the world, but she knew better than to trust strangers. Still, this man didn't seem threatening. Seeing her uncertainty, he added earnestly, "Please, I promise I'll repay your kindness." As he spoke, he reached into his coat and pulled out a gold coin. Layla froze. Of all things, money was the one thing she couldn't use. She turned away and said quietly, "If it's about money, then forget it. You can come in." As soon as the man stepped a few feet inside, Layla grabbed the oil lamp from the table and stood her ground. "If you want to stay," she said calmly but firmly, "you'll follow my rules. Just for a while, then you leave." The man raised both hands in surrender. "Of course. Your home, your rules." But Layla wasn't convinced. She still suspected he had an ulterior motive. Yet with the rain pouring down outside, kicking him out now might lead to disaster. After a moment's pause, she gestured toward a chair. "Sit there." The man obeyed without complaint and took a seat quietly. Looking around, he asked curiously, "Why not light the lamp? It's pretty dark in here." Layla answered honestly, "There's no oil left." The man chuckled softly. "That's all right." His smile caught Layla off guard. Most people recoiled the moment they saw her. Yet this man was still smiling. He then noticed her trembling hands. Reaching into his bag, he said, "If you don't need money, then maybe you'll need this." As he reached deeper into the pouch, Layla quickly shouted, "Don't move." But then, her eyes lit up. A little later, the man took off his soaked raincoat and wiped the water from his hair. Smiling, he said, "Really, thank you. I didn't expect you'd even offer me a meal. Honestly, the bit of jerky I gave you earlier wasn't nearly enough. If you need anything else, just let me know." But Layla was still wary. Something about this man didn't sit right. He was too calm, too kind. Then out of nowhere, he asked, "By the way, what's your name?" Layla had no intention of answering. So he pressed on. "I might be around here for a while. Can't keep calling you miss, can I?" After a long pause, Layla finally muttered, "Layla. Nice to meet you." "I'm Oster," the man replied cheerfully. "I didn't ask," Layla said flatly. But in her mind the questions swirled. Who was this man really? His clothes were strange. And so was the way he spoke. Suddenly Oster called out, "Layla." She snapped, her voice sharp. "I told you not to touch anything." No, he quickly explained. "I just meant, the pot's boiling over." Layla finally realized and rushed to check. Then Oster asked curiously, "What are you making? I mean, it probably smells great, but I can't actually smell anything." Layla froze. "Wait, what? You can't smell anything?" Everyone hated her because of the stench she carried. Even her own parents couldn't stand to be near her. Her father, a local baron, had thrown her into the mountains when she was just 10, afraid her existence might tarnish his reputation. He never told a soul he had a daughter, so almost no one knew that the so-called witch in the woods was actually the baron's own flesh and blood. Few people ever bothered with Layla, but there was one exception, a grumpy old drunk. He was the only one who'd actually talked to her, stink and all. He even taught her many things. Most were little everyday lessons. like being polite to elders or how cold baths could make you sick. Sure, he could smell the odor too, but instead of mocking or avoiding her, he'd just gag dramatically and say it helped him clear his stomach from the booze. One day, Layla told the old man she didn't want to live anymore. But he replied seriously, "The gods don't forgive those who take their own lives. Worse yet, if your suffering isn't over in this life, it might carry on into the next." Young Layla looked at him like he was crazy. What kind of logic was that? Endure hell now for the hope of a better reincarnation. Still, after saying it out loud, even she grew a little hesitant. Maybe dying wasn't so easy after all. The old man didn't push further. Instead he asked, "So you really can't smell yourself?" Layla nodded honestly. He mused, "Maybe that's the will of the gods." Layla almost lost it. The gods? Really? Are they that bored they had to curse me with this? But the old man continued, "What I mean is, everyone exists for a reason. Maybe there's a purpose behind your smell. And if you find that purpose, the smell might just go away." That one sentence from the old drunk had kept Layla alive for 10 more years. Before meeting Oster, she had nearly convinced herself it was time to give up. And yet this man, this stranger, was able to face her without flinching, simply because he couldn't smell. Oster explained that he had fallen off a horse as a child, and lost his sense of smell ever since. But the truth was, he could smell Layla. He just thought her scent was oddly pleasant, so much so it drowned out everything else. He gave a small sigh of regret. "It's a shame I can't smell the food you made." Layla looked down and replied softly, "It's just plain cabbage soup." And yet in that moment something in her heart sank. So what if he couldn't smell? In the end he was still just a passerby. Suddenly a cold grunt came from behind. Oster's face had turned pale and he looked visibly strained. Layla froze. Wait, could he actually smell her? Was he lying to her this whole time? But Oster quickly explained, "I must have pulled an old wound while rushing here. Feels like it opened again." Layla believed him. After all, she knew exactly what people looked like when they caught her scent. No one could ever hide that mix of disgust and contempt. Snapping out of it, Layla said quietly, "Leave once the rain stops." Oster nodded without protest. But as soon as she turned around, he swallowed hard. Like he was holding something back, barely. His eyes locked on her frail back. "No, not yet. She's not ready to be completely devoured by me." The next day, Oster arrived at the Baron's estate to join him for a meal. Casually, he mentioned spotting a small wooden cabin deep in the mountains the night before. The Baron brushed it off. "The mountain territory is vast. I have no idea what might be out there." Oster swirled the wine in his glass, eyes thoughtful. "It is vast, I nearly got lost. That cabin, though, it looked like someone was living there." At those words, the Baron visibly tensed. Meanwhile, Irene, who had remained silent until now, calmly dabbed her lips with a napkin. Then, with a troubled expression, she said, "Actually, the person in that cabin is a cursed witch. She's incredibly dangerous. They say she can cast deadly curses on people, and worse, she emits a foul stench so strong that even from the other side of the mountain, it can make people gag." Oster appeared appropriately shocked. Irene continued, "Even someone like you, blessed with royal blood and divine protection. That stench is beyond anything holy. Please, I beg you, don't go near that cabin." Little did they know, the scent Oster had caught wasn't foul at all. To him it was utterly intoxicating. He hadn't stumbled upon that cabin by accident. He had followed that mesmerizing aroma all the way there. That fragrance had awakened something primal in him, a hunger so deep it nearly consumed him. Now he began piecing together what he had seen last night with what he was hearing now. He distinctly remembered Layla holding a candle holder. Candles were a rare luxury in these remote mountains. For such a shabby cabin to have one? That didn't add up. In fact, the only place in this territory wealthy enough to afford candles was the Baron's estate. That could only mean Layla had a connection to this house. A close one. As Oster swirled the wine in his glass, a wistful thought crossed his mind. If only it were Layla sitting across from me instead of these liars. After dinner, Irene personally led Oster to the guest room prepared for him. Along the way, she kept sneaking glances at his expression, trying to read his mood. Oster, meanwhile, found the petty tricks of backwater nobility laughably crude. His own attendant was probably already bought off, greedy fool that he was. Still, perhaps it was for the best. If they'd really pushed some scantily dressed woman into his room, he might have torn her apart on the spot. Just as that thought crossed his mind, Irene suddenly stumbled into him. "Oh no, Your Highness. I think I twisted my ankle," she whispered. As she spoke, she leaned in even closer, her body brushing deliberately against his. Oster remained unmoved. Sure, in a place like this she might pass for high class, but in the capital women like her were a dime a dozen. And while her face did vaguely resemble Layla's, that was no excuse for her to overstep. Irene, meanwhile, truly believed her little scheme had worked. "Your Highness, allow me to serve you. I'll accompany you back to your room," she purred. But in the very next second she was shoved away, without the slightest gentleness. She stared at him, stunned and confused. Yet when she caught a glimpse of the murderous glare in Oster's eyes, she didn't dare utter another word. Without a glance back, Oster strode off toward his room, his steps sharp and decisive. He loathed everything about this place. The mansion, the people, the empty pleasantries. The only reason he was still here was that addictive scent. When he returned to his room, he found his attendant, Shuri, crouched by the fireplace, warming his hands. Apparently, it had only taken 500 shillings to buy his loyalty. Pathetic. Oster didn't even bother getting angry. He simply ordered, "Look into that witch. I want every detail. And get me candles and a horse ready for tomorrow." Meanwhile, Layla sat staring blankly at the gold coin on her table. She had clearly told him she wouldn't accept money, yet he had left it anyway. With a quiet sigh, she slipped out of her dress and stepped outside. Down by the creek, the water was just as icy as she'd expected. It bit straight into her bones. But she kept scrubbing herself again and again. Maybe if she washed enough, the smell would fade. After all, she finally had a bit of money. She could make a trip to the market and buy some real supplies. It had been so long since she'd tasted meat. Her body was frail from the lack of nutrition. If the stench wasn't too strong, maybe, just maybe, she could stay at the market a little longer before people started pushing her away. But the next day, as soon as Layla stepped into the market, a foul stench filled the street. Thankfully, none of the passers-by realized that she was the source of it. She carefully made her way through the crowd and finally spotted the butcher's stall. With a spark of excitement, she walked up and said, "Sir, I'd like a pound of pork, please." The butcher smiled and replied, "Sure. Which cut do you want? Are you cooking it in a stew or roasting it?" But just as he continued chatting, his voice suddenly cut off mid-sentence. He had caught a whiff of something foul. Layla's heart skipped a beat in panic. But luckily, the butcher didn't realize where the smell was coming from. Layla was just about to leave quietly and try another butcher when a sudden voice from behind stopped her in her tracks. "Do you have any turkey meat?" a cheerful young woman asked. The butcher turned to greet the new customer with a smile. "Let me finish up with this young lady first, then I'll get it for you," he said, turning back to Layla. "So, miss, which cut do you want?" Layla murmured softly. I'm planning to use it for stew." But then the customer behind her suddenly wrinkled her nose and exclaimed, "What's that smell? Did your meat go bad?" With a huff, the woman turned and walked off, disgusted. The butcher's expression shifted and he rushed out to call after her. He scratched his head, confused about what had just happened. Then his eyes slowly drifted back to Layla, who stood frozen, saying nothing. His expression darkened as he stepped forward, voice low and hostile. "Hey, it's you, isn't it?" Layla clenched her fists tightly, saying nothing, her silence louder than any defense. The butcher wasn't done. He jabbed a finger at her and shouted, "You filthy beggar! You were gonna take the meat and run, weren't you? Not planning to pay at all." Layla felt a wave of regret crash over her. She'd underestimated just how fast her scent could betray her. In a fit of anger, the butcher lunged forward, trying to shove her away. She stumbled and fell to the ground, her hat slipping off, exposing her tangled hair and pale face. The butcher spat into his hand, ready to strike her. But then he froze. Something in her face. His voice trembled. You're the witch." Layla stood frozen, stunned and silent. By now the commotion had drawn attention. Onlookers stared, eyes wide with horror. Then panic set in, they scattered in all directions, screaming. The butcher fell to the ground, begging for mercy. Layla just stood there, cold and unmoved. She had always known, no one would get close, no one would help. In this world she could only rely on herself. Layla rose to her feet, her voice ice cold. Give me the meat I came to buy. The butcher, trembling all over, fumbled to pack it up. All of it. Take it. Just, please don't curse me. How much? She asked, her tone flat. He was too terrified to even think of asking for payment. But Layla shouted, I'm not a thief. Startled, the butcher stammered, 2 shillings. Layla threw down a gold coin. Keep the change. She just wanted to get out of there. Behind her, the butcher kept groveling. Why, you're right. I deserve whatever punishment comes. Layla stopped in her tracks. Without turning around, she said coldly, if you deserve to die, then why don't you? Then she walked away, not with panic but with calm, steady steps. No longer fleeing. Just done. When Layla got home, she was startled to find Oster waiting outside her cabin. Layla froze, confused by the look on his face. As he stepped toward her, she instinctively backed away. But Oster leaned in close, too close, and said softly, You were crying, weren't you? Layla turned away without a word and rushed back into the house. Her breath came in sharp bursts. No one had ever gotten that close to her before. It overwhelmed her. Then footsteps. She turned sharply. Oster had followed her inside. Who are you really? She demanded, her voice unsteady. Why did you come in? What is it you want from me? At her question, Oster gave a mischievous grin. He stepped closer, saying, I was just worried about you. A beautiful lady like yourself living alone out here. It's dangerous. Layla stared at him in disbelief. She knew she wasn't beautiful. She had nothing about her that could attract a man. So, are you insane or something? I smell disgusting. But Oster stayed perfectly calm. And that one word shut Layla up completely. Then he casually changed the subject. Actually, I brought you something. He opened the cloth sack in his hands. Inside was a pile of candles. Without asking, he struck a match and began lighting them one by one. Since I left, I kept thinking about this pitch-black little cabin. So I figured I'd bring some light. Watching the flames flicker to life, Layla looked uneasy. That's a lot of candles. Oster just smiled faintly. Actually, Shuri raided the Baron's stash last night. Took pretty much all of them. They're probably eating dinner in the dark right now. But hey, that's not my problem. Then Oster said softly, back when you let me in during the rain, I honestly felt like I'd met a savior. If it weren't for you, I might have frozen to death in that forest. And you even gave me that amazing soup. I figured I should repay you even just a little. Seeing that Layla was still hesitant, Oster shifted his gaze away deliberately. Then, how about trading me some of those strawberries? They look delicious. Where did you buy them? I picked them, Layla replied quietly. Oster grinned. Strawberries picked by such a lovely lady? I bet they taste incredible. Layla flared up. Stop talking nonsense. And why should I give you any? In truth, Oster had already figured her out. Call her cute and she'd get flustered. Give her a gift and she'd feel guilty. As expected, after a moment of internal struggle, Layla handed over the strawberries. And he knew, every time he smiled at her, she'd always avert her gaze. This time was no different. While Layla had her back turned, Oster was silently reveling in the intoxicating scent that filled the cabin. So, where should I start first? The thought lingered in his mind as he basked in the aroma, completely unaware that Layla had already turned around. Why are your eyes closed? She asked, puzzled. Oster kept his composure. Nothing. I'm just a little tired. That's when he noticed the cut on her hand. Without hesitation, he reached out and gently took her injured hand, his face full of concern. That must hurt. Layla flinched at the sudden contact, but she didn't pull away. It was the first time anyone had ever touched her. Then, to her shock, Oster suddenly leaned in and began sucking at the wound. What are you doing? She gasped. Oster calmly replied, I was just spitting on it. He explained that spit helps wounds heal faster. Basic knowledge, though clearly unfamiliar to someone like Layla who lived alone in a cabin her whole life. But then, without warning, he leaned in and bit her. Heart. Blood welled up as he muttered, just as sweet as I imagined. Layla recoiled in terror, stumbling back in shock. But before she could escape, Oster pulled her tightly into his arms. He held her close, whispering against her ear, "Come with me. Let me rescue you, take you far from this filthy swamp of a life." But Layla knew better than to trust such promises. She was born unlucky, abandoned at 10, left to survive in this shack all on her own. Back then she couldn't even sleep through the night. Her childhood was filled with tears, and she endured it for a full decade. This man wasn't drawn to her because he accepted her. He simply couldn't smell her. She shoved Oster away and snapped, "So what? You can't save me. I'm not stuck in the gutter. I am the gutter." At her words, Oster stood still, silent. After a long pause, he turned and walked away. Layla watched him go, confused and conflicted. Why did he keep coming back? Was he just like the old drunk, pitying her from afar? Or was it something else entirely? She truly didn't know what to do anymore. The next day, Oster returned once again. He sat across from Layla, the two of them facing each other in silence. After a while, Layla mumbled, "The candles you gave me yesterday, it was really too much." Surprisingly, Oster didn't argue. Instead, he nodded and said calmly, "Then I'll accept your repayment." Hearing that, Layla patted her chest and said earnestly, "Since I took something from you, I want to give you something in return. So tell me, what do you want?" Oster was briefly stunned, then smiled softly. Meanwhile, chaos had broken out at the Baron's estate as a crowd gathered demanding answers. "The witch came down from the mountain," they shouted. "She caused a scene at the market." The Baron was shocked and tried to calm the crowd. Internally he wondered, why would that child act out like this? In his mind it must have been because they forgot to send her supplies. And yet he still placed all the blame on Layla. Just then a voice rose from the crowd. "Is that why you've been so hesitant, Baron? I heard from the guards that the witch claimed to be your daughter. Is that true? Is that why you haven't dealt with her?" The Baron felt a lump in his throat. This couldn't go on. If word got out that she really is my daughter, people might leave my lands altogether. Forget prosperity, we wouldn't even be able to meet our basic tributes. At that moment, Irene stepped forward. "Everyone, if I may say a few words." She looked pitiful as she spoke. "First of all, I sincerely apologize on behalf of the estate." Then she bowed deeply to the crowd. As expected, the noise and murmuring quickly quieted down. With a troubled expression, she continued, "We truly believed we had done everything we could to keep the witch away from the village. But clearly, something went wrong. Her behavior was erratic and hard to predict. As for what she said when she came to the estate, I believe she may be mentally unstable. Considering how dangerous she is, we will be hiring powerful mages to drive her away. No matter the cost, we'll do it without hesitation. Because the peace and safety of this land is our highest priority." After hearing Irene's speech, the crowd felt completely reassured, like they'd taken a calming pill. Many looked at her with admiration and respect. One by one they left the Baron's estate, all under Irene's gentle, graceful gaze. As she watched them go, a soft smile played on her lips. 19 years, she thought. I've been cleaning up Layla's messes for 19 years. The Baron, meanwhile, looked at his younger daughter, only 19, and felt a chill run down his spine. He had always feared people would find out the witch was his daughter. But now he feared something else even more. That Irene might actually eliminate Layla. Because he knew the truth. Irene, who always seemed kind and perfect in front of others, had a side only he had seen. A side that could change in an instant. A side that could turn terrifying without warning. Just then, the Baron's attendant hurried in with a message. "Your Lordship, the Crown Prince's envoy requests to speak with you." Soon after, Shuri appeared and delivered a shocking announcement. The Crown Prince had chosen the Baron's daughter to be his future consort. The Baron was stunned. Truth be told, he hadn't dared to hope for such a thing. But once the reality sank in, that he would be the father-in-law of the future king, all his prior worries vanished like smoke. Meanwhile, Irene stood nearby, her expression bashful but triumphant, as if this outcome had always been hers to claim. Shuri added, "You'd best pack quickly. His Highness plans to escort her back to the palace directly." Of course, Shuri had also lined his own pockets quite well in the process, grinning ear to ear. As the Baron, still elated, tried to invite the prince for dinner, Shuri politely declined. His Highness already has plans. It's a matter of personal affairs. And yes, Layla, the Baron's eldest daughter, was the true object of that so-called personal engagement. But right now Oster sat staring at his plate, unsure where to begin. All he saw were a few charred, blackened mushrooms. "So, is this the appetizer?" he asked, lips twitching. "Does that mean the main course is going to be something like steak?" Layla blinked, completely lost. What, steak? Having lived alone for 20 years, these terms were foreign to her. She had no clue what he was talking about. Oster sighed inwardly. He had definitely expected too much. He'd thought she might at least be able to whip up a decent meal as a thank you. Guess he'd need to come up with another plan. Just as that thought crossed his mind, he noticed Layla awkwardly nibbling her finger. Blood had already started to bead at the tip. Immediately, he moved behind her. "You're bleeding. Let me treat it." Layla looked up, confused at first. But then she remembered how he'd treated her last time. Mouth on wound, that weird sucking sensation, and her face lit up bright red. Before Layla could say anything, Oster leaned down and started sucking on her wound again. Her brows furrowed. "Why does my whole body tingle when he does that? And the worst part is, I don't hate it." She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to suppress the strange sensations overtaking her. Oster's gentle voice brought her back. "Layla, I want you to repay me in a different way. Is that all right?" Layla's heart skipped a beat. What if I can't give him what he wants? Sensing her tension, Oster quickly added, "Relax. It's much easier than this." Then he gently wrapped an arm around her slender waist. "Come on. Let's talk outside." They walked together into the depths of a quiet grove, and Layla's unease began to grow. "Why did we come all the way out here?" she asked. "What could I possibly give you in a place like this?" But Oster wasn't ready to explain. "If I told you now, it would ruin the surprise." Layla gave him a suspicious look. She couldn't imagine what kind of repayment needed so much mystery. Still, despite her doubts, she followed him deeper into the woods, step by hesitant step. Not long after, Oster stopped and said, "We're here." Before them stretched a small field of daisies hidden deep within the woods. He truly did understand a woman's heart, especially someone like Layla, who had never seen beauty beyond her cabin walls. As expected, her face lit up with childlike joy. She couldn't stop smiling as she rushed toward the field. Then all of a sudden, her nose filled with the sweet, gentle scent of flowers. It startled her. She had grown so used to the stench clinging to her that she'd almost forgotten what anything else smelled like. Oster, watching her, found her reaction utterly captivating. But he couldn't smell the flowers, not at all. His senses were drowned in the overwhelming aroma of her. That scent he could never get enough. No matter how deeply he inhaled, it only left him thirstier, hungrier, as if he'd one day die from the craving alone. And even knowing that fate, he still wanted her. Wanted everything she was, everything she had to offer. Layla had no idea about the wild, obsessive thoughts swirling in Oster's mind. After sitting among the flowers for a while, she slowly got to her feet. The fierce little wildcat seemed unusually shy and bashful now. "I've never done any of this before," she said softly. "At first it was overwhelming, but I actually found it fun. It made me happy. I just wanted to say that. And honestly, it doesn't feel like I'm repaying you. If anything, it feels like I'm receiving something from you again." Determined, she added, "So I'll try to make something better this time. Well, I'll try to make that steak you talked about." With that, she turned and quietly walked back toward the cabin. When Shuri found out that Oster wanted to make Layla the crown princess, he was utterly baffled. From a strategic standpoint, a remote countryside baron offered little to no value in a fight against the king. Oster said nothing, letting Shuri rant while he remained deep in thought. All that filled his mind was Layla. How to completely possess her, how to tear her from the world and devour her whole. He wanted her entirely, no matter the consequences. So he made up his mind. "Go tell the baron," he instructed Shuri. "It's time." The next morning, Layla watched yet another rabbit dash right past her, escaping with ease. She grumbled under her breath, "That stupid baron. Not only did he cut off my food supply, he gave me this useless trap. I swear it's broken on purpose." Frowning, she poked at it with a stick to test the mechanism. Snap. The sudden sound startled her so much she fell backward onto the ground. "Okay, so it's not broken," she muttered, dazed. "But seriously, how does this thing even work?" Left with no choice, Layla reluctantly picked up the instruction manual. But the moment she glanced at it, she realized she couldn't understand a single word. It all looked like gibberish. Her patience completely snapped. Why did I even bother trying to repay Oster? Must be because I had nothing better to do. Ever since she met that man, she'd been acting all kinds of weird. Especially that time when he treated her injury. Just thinking about it made her face flush bright red. Shaking her head furiously, she returned to her hopeless attempts at hunting. Meanwhile, Xioli approached the Baron and his daughter. Without beating around the bush, he announced, "The Crown Prince intends to marry Layla, not Eileen." The Baron's expression changed the moment he heard the Crown Princess wouldn't be Eileen. With disbelief written all over his face, he asked, "I have another daughter?" Little did he know, uncovering the truth was hardly a challenge for the royal family. Eileen exploded with rage. Impossible. How could it be her? But Shuri remained composed. "The one His Highness intends to marry is your sister, Lila." Eileen was still in denial. "They've never even met." Shuri didn't hold back and explained in full how the Crown Prince had encountered Lila at the market. Upon hearing this, the Baron's face turned ashen. He objected immediately, "This is ridiculous. I paid you to help my daughter, and gave you a generous tip." Shuri calmly replied, "And now your daughter is going to be Crown Princess, isn't she? Doesn't that mean I got the job done? Or are you denying Lila is your daughter?" The Baron and Eileen were left speechless. Shuri stood up and prepared to leave. As he walked away, he added, "Tomorrow, same time, same place, bring the rightful daughter of the Baron." Eileen stormed back to her room, smashing a teacup in fury. The Baron stood by, unfazed. He'd seen this before. How could it be Lila? That filthy girl as the Crown Princess? "Father, do you really think that makes sense?" The Baron sighed, nodding, "It's absurd, yes. But it's out of my hands now. What's done is done." Hearing this, Eileen's expression twisted. She marched toward him with fire in her eyes. "Out of your hands? That wretch is still your daughter. If she enters the palace, you'll still benefit. No matter what, it's your daughter marrying into royalty." Her aggressive tone made the Baron visibly uneasy. "Get real, father. She's a witch. Do you realize what that could mean for the entire family?" The Baron's face darkened, but Eileen pressed on. "Who knows what kind of spell she cast to deceive His Highness, but do you really think it'll last forever? When the truth comes out, what do you think will happen to us? To our family?" The Baron looked deeply troubled, his face full of hesitation. "The problem is, the royal family sent someone personally. What choice do we have? We have to follow orders." Eileen let out a cold laugh. "Have you thought about what happens if things go south? Those noble heirs will never admit they made a mistake. They'll blame us, call us traitors." Her eyes sharpened. "But I have a plan. Father, summon the villagers, right now." "We've hesitated long enough," she said through gritted teeth. "It's time to end this. If I can't have it, then she won't either." That night, a group of people quietly gathered in the forest. As Layla stirred her fragrant pot of meat porridge, she suddenly sensed something was wrong. "Well, so it's finally come," she murmured, surprisingly calm. A strange thought crossed her mind. "I bet that fire's going to be scorching hot." She remembered a picture book once sent from the Baron's estate, one filled with illustrations of witches being burned alive. She hoped for a painless end, but she knew that was never her choice to make. "Forget it. This life has been far more painful anyway," she sighed to herself. The flickering glow of approaching torches grew brighter. She glanced down at the steaming porridge beside her. "So I didn't even get to taste it. I failed the hunt, but I used all my stored meat to cook this. It was supposed to be a thank you." As she stepped slowly toward the door, a faint, bitter smile touched her lips. "If this really is my final moment, why is it you that I'm thinking of?" Outside her house, the villagers had already surrounded the place, torches raised and hatred burning in their eyes. Layla stepped out, then quietly closed the door behind her, as if hoping that the meat porridge meant for Ost would somehow remain untouched. In her heart, she whispered a silent goodbye. "Farewell, Ost." The man leading the mob roared, "We're here to get rid of you once and for all." Facing them all alone, Layla pleaded, "Could you maybe come back later? Let me have one more day." But someone shouted back, "I can't stand another second with you alive." Layla narrowed her eyes and shot back, And what exactly have you suffered from me? The crowd faltered. No one could give an answer. A few even took a step back. She raised her voice, trembling with fury. Tell me, have you seen me eat a child? Have I ever spread a plague? Silence. Not a single voice dared respond. There she stood all alone, one girl against the storm, against every cruel, blind judgment in the world. The man leading the mob sneered with disdain. Your biggest crime is still being alive, and stinking up the air. Layla let out a bitter laugh. She knew she was standing at death's door. And yet all she could think about was how she hadn't fulfilled her promise to that man. With trembling lips she pleaded, please, just come back in a few days. I'll let you kill me then, I swear. The villagers scoffed loudly. Don't tell me you're still hoping the Baron will come to save you? Layla froze. That didn't make sense. What do you mean by that? One villager stepped forward and said it outright. It was the Baron himself who ordered us to deal with you. Her breath caught. For a moment, everything fell silent in her mind. Her own father had sent them to kill her. Tears welled up and blurred her vision, staining a world that had never once accepted her. Layla felt her heart tear apart, the pain overwhelming her entire body. She tried to picture her father's face, but after all these years, she couldn't even remember what he looked like. Her knees buckled slightly. The girl who had always been strong was on the verge of collapse. The mob erupted, voices shouting in unison, "Burn the witch! Cleanse the village!" A pounding headache surged through her skull, threatening to shatter her mind. A torch suddenly lunged toward her, and she instinctively flinched in panic. One man yelled, his voice rising with hysteria, "Look! She fears fire, she really is a witch." Two others rushed in, forcefully restraining her arms and shoulders. Layla thrashed and struggled with all her strength, desperate to escape this nightmare. Suddenly, a bone-chilling scream tore through the night. The mob froze in panic, unsure of what was happening. One brave man stepped forward to investigate. But the sight before him made his whole body tremble in terror. A massive black panther was devouring a villager right before their eyes. The others gasped in horror. They had never seen a beast of this size before. With a single swipe of its tail, the panther sent the crowd stumbling backward. No one knew where it had come from. Its sharp gaze locked onto the red-haired man who had been restraining Layla. Cold sweat poured down his face as fear took hold of him. Sensing the moment, Layla fought harder than ever, nearly slipping free from his grasp. But the red-haired man yanked her back violently, shouting, "This is your trickery, isn't it? You witch." The next second, the red-haired man wrapped his arm around Layla's neck, choking her. Her breathing grew more and more labored as her vision began to blur. But oddly enough, in that moment between life and death, a wild hope flickered in her heart. That the man who once treated her wounds might come and save her, completely unaware that he was, in fact, the crown prince himself. She thought her life was about to end right there and then. But suddenly, the pressure around her neck vanished. Layla looked up and saw the Black Panther had tackled her attacker, knocking him to the ground. Even more astonishing, the beast showed no hostility toward her. It calmly approached her side as if trying to comfort and protect her. Layla stared in disbelief, bewildered by the panther's behavior and where it could have come from. Then she noticed something even stranger. Its eyes were a brilliant gold. She had lived in this forest for 10 years, but had never seen a creature like this before. The villagers were terrified, convinced the Black Panther was a monster Layla had summoned with her witchcraft. They raised their torches high, trying to scare the beast away. But instead of backing down, the panther lunged straight at the crowd. The chaos gave Layla a glimmer of hope, but then the two men restraining her snarled at her. "Make it stop. Lock that thing up or you'll regret it." Layla ignored them entirely, her gaze cold and defiant. Seeing her about to break free, the red-haired man clenched his jaw in fury. In a flash, he drew a sharp dagger and drove it straight toward her heart. In the next second, the Black Panther lunged and crushed the red-haired man's waist with one savage bite. Blood gushed into the air, dyeing the sky a deep, terrifying red. The villagers trembled in fear, instinctively backing away from the horror. Layla froze. She hadn't expected the panther to actually kill someone. The beast let out a deafening roar, its voice echoing through the forest like a death knell. Taking advantage of the chaos, one villager hurled a burning torch at Layla's wooden cottage. The dry timber instantly caught fire, and within seconds the whole house was engulfed in flames. Layla stood paralyzed, staring helplessly at the blaze. She wanted to save her home, to do something, anything, but the reality left her powerless. That cottage was all she had. If it burned down, she had nowhere left to go. And now, with a man dead outside her door, the fleeing villagers would surely pin everything on her. Layla had always been alone, but this time she knew it was truly over. A deep roar echoed through the air, drawing Layla's attention. She turned and saw the Black Panther still standing loyally beside her. After a long hesitation, she finally mustered the courage to ask, "Why won't you hurt me?" Somehow those golden eyes felt strangely familiar, like she'd seen them somewhere before. Suddenly her burning cottage collapsed with a thunderous crash. She shouted in panic, "It's dangerous. You have to get out of here." But when she looked back, the panther was already gone, vanished without a trace. Layla murmured to herself, "It's the first time anyone stood by me, even if it was just a beast." Bathed in the flickering glow of the flames, she stood alone once again, just Layla facing the world. After burning all night, the wooden cottage had crumbled into a pile of ash. Layla sat alone by the ruins through the entire night, unaware that the crown prince had quietly arrived. It wasn't until he gently asked, "What happened here?" that Layla finally spoke, recounting everything that had taken place. Hearing she was unharmed, the prince felt an immense wave of relief. But Layla suddenly remembered the meat porridge she had prepared for that man. Guilt surged within her, filling her chest with a deep, inexplicable sorrow. The prince, misunderstanding her grief, thought it was over the loss of her home. He glanced at the scorched remains of her cottage and softly said, "Come with me." But to his surprise, Layla snapped at him in anger, shouting, "Why would I go with you?" Without another word, Layla turned and bolted away. She had to confront the Baron, ask him why he would sentence his own daughter to death. The crown prince, unwilling to let her go alone, followed at a distance. But Layla shot him a sharp warning, "Stop following me. I'm going to see my parents." The prince feigned ignorance. "Oh, so your parents are still alive." Layla didn't want to exchange another word with him. He was afraid she might come to rely on him. Yet the image of him tending to her wounds kept flashing in her mind. Her heart began to race, completely out of nowhere. Forcing herself to snap out of it, she scolded herself, "Get a grip, Layla. This is all just your own foolish fantasy." Soon, Layla arrived at the gates of the Baron's estate. The stench clinging to her body made the guards visibly gag. "Get lost, you filthy witch," one of them shouted. But this time Layla didn't back down. She marched forward with unwavering resolve. "Go fetch the Baron," she ordered coldly. "Yow." The guard, panicking, thought she was about to summon some wild beast. He trembled uncontrollably, nearly collapsing on the spot. Just then the Baron himself appeared in a flurry. Seeing Layla, he grew flustered, stumbling over his words in an effort to hide their familial connection. I'll speak with her alone. She won't harm me," he stammered. The guard still hesitated until Layla snarled, "Unless you want to die, scram." That was all it took. The guard bolted, tripping over himself in terror. Yet when face to face with his daughter, the Baron couldn't say a single word. His expression twisted with discomfort. It was Layla who finally broke the silence. "My home was burned down." The Baron forced a pained look, feigning sympathy. But behind that mask, there was not even a trace of intent to help her. Layla's anger erupted. "Do you truly want me dead? My dear father." Her heart was breaking. She still didn't understand what had she done wrong. Was it just because of that foul stench that clung to her, no matter how hard she tried to wash it away? That wasn't her fault. She had refused to believe what the villagers said the night before. She thought they were trying to sow discord between her and her father. But now the truth was undeniable. Her own father had ordered her execution by fire. Her tears fell like rain, soaking the ground, but not even a flicker of pity showed in the Baron's eyes. The last glimmer of hope died. In that moment Layla accepted it. Her father had truly cast her aside. And to the Baron, those tears were nothing but repulsive. "Why didn't you just die last night?" he roared. "Do you have any idea how ashamed I am to have a daughter like you?" Then he turned and stormed off, as if even standing near her was a stain on his name. Only now did Layla truly understand. She had always been a disgrace in her father's eyes. Like a puppet drained of its soul, she wandered aimlessly into the depths of the forest, her body moving on instinct alone. She had nowhere to go. The only place she could call home had burned to ashes the night before. Her chest throbbed with a crushing ache. All she wanted now was to rest, even if it meant never waking up. Unbeknownst to her, everything that had just happened was witnessed by the crown prince, who had been hiding behind the trees. Burning with fury over how his fiancée had been treated, he stormed into the baron's estate without hesitation. "You dare try to burn my bride alive?" he growled. The baron stammered. I thought you meant my younger daughter." The prince's tone was ice cold. "My aide made it perfectly clear who I chose. Don't play dumb." The baron's heart skipped a beat. He could feel it. This was not the same gentle prince he thought he knew. Sweat trickled down his face as he fumbled to explain. "The elder daughter. She has flaws. I just wanted to correct the mistake." But the crown prince calmly stroked his chin and said almost lazily, "Are you insane? You dare ruin my plans." The baron froze, stunned by the sheer change in demeanor. This was no longer the affable prince of the past. A chill ran down his spine. He now knew beyond doubt, disaster was coming. Just then Eileen stepped into the hall, dressed in an elegant black gown. She tried to explain herself. With a pitiful expression she said, "My sister has been cursed since birth. She constantly emits a terrible stench. We spent nearly all our fortune trying to help her, but nothing ever worked." Tears welled up in Eileen's eyes, the perfect image of a sorrowful, helpless girl. But behind the tears she was plotting, hoping the crown prince would realize she was the better choice for a future princess. Unfortunately for her, the prince had already seen through her little act. He smirked. "Funny how you claim to be broke, yet your gown screams luxury." Eileen's heart sank. She hadn't expected this reaction from the prince. In a panic she snapped, "But it's true. Everyone knows my sister is a witch." She had no idea those words would ignite the fire in the crown prince's eyes. "You dared lie to me? That's not just deceit. It's defiance against the crown." At that moment the crown prince was like a savage black panther, ready to tear the baron and his daughter apart at any second. The baron collapsed to his knees with a thud, pleading desperately for mercy. But the prince coldly declared that the Valencia family would be stripped of their barony. Still, the greedy father and daughter refused to accept defeat. Just as the prince was about to leave the hall, Eileen lunged forward and grabbed his arm. "Please, your highness, spare us," she cried out in panic. Disgust surged through the prince. With lightning speed he drew his sword. In one swift motion he severed Eileen's arm. The searing pain twisted her face in agony as she crumpled to the floor. The baron stood frozen, staring in horror at the blood splattered across the marble. The prince, unfazed, casually rubbed his sore left wrist. Then, in a voice devoid of emotion, he gave the order, "Shuri, burn the baron's estate to the ground." The baron was dumbfounded. This meant his entire legacy would vanish in flames. He prayed it was just a nightmare. But the roaring blaze consuming the estate made it painfully clear. This was reality and there was no going back. Meanwhile, Layla had returned to the forest. Consumed by despair, she no longer wanted to live such a pitiful existence. She walked to a quiet pond, closed her eyes, and prepared to let herself slip into eternal sleep. She thought she was finally free from this hellish life. But just as she was about to lose consciousness, a sudden force pulled her out of the water. When she opened her eyes, she saw the same mysterious man once again. Layla broke down completely, years of pain and anger erupting all at once as she screamed through her tears. "What do you want from me? Why won't you even let me die?" But the man, usually so proud and untouchable, lowered his head, his eyes filled with pain and helplessness. "So you're just going to leave me, all alone?" He grasped Layla's hands tightly, refusing to let go no matter how hard she struggled. He was terrified that if he loosened his grip he'd lose her forever. Trapped in his hold, Layla shouted in anguish, "I am a witch. Everyone wants me dead, including my own father." Her words stabbed deep into the softest part of his heart. Still, he forced a gentle smile and said, "You're not a witch. You're just a little different, that's all." Then he asked softly, "Have you ever eaten a child? Spread disease." Layla fell silent, unable to answer. He leaned in, his voice firm. "Exactly. That means you're not a witch." Then the man gently took Layla's hand and pressed a tender kiss into her palm. With heartfelt sincerity in his eyes, he pleaded, "Come with me." Layla blushed furiously. This was her first taste of love, and her words tumbled clumsily out of her mouth. But in the end she nodded. The man finally let out a quiet sigh of relief. To conceal his identity as the crown prince, he had specially ordered Shuri to fetch a simple carriage. But the moment Layla laid eyes on it, she was utterly stunned. In her 18 years of life, she had never seen a carriage so extravagant. Not even the Baron's estate owned one this refined. Layla couldn't help but wonder. This man must be a noble. She had suspected it before. His clothing, his mannerisms, they were anything but ordinary. But out of respect, she had never asked who he really was. Inside the carriage, the two sat in awkward silence, unsure of what to say. Suddenly, the carriage jolted violently. The man quickly reassured her, "Once we're out of this forest, the road will be much smoother." As the thought of leaving behind the forest where she'd spent most of her life sank in, Layla felt an unexpected pang of reluctance. Just as she turned to take one last look, a temple in the distance caught her eye. The man smiled and said, "If you have a wish, you can stop there and pray. Who knows? It might really come true." But Layla calmly replied, "I don't believe in gods." The man was taken aback. No one in the empire had ever openly admitted to such disbelief. Just as Layla was about to explain herself, the man suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. "You're just too lovable," he murmured with a smile. Layla flared up. "Do you have some kind of scheme?" Wild thoughts rushed through her mind. Was he planning to sell her to a real witch? Her imagination made the man chuckle. "You're seriously adorable." His slender fingers teasingly lifted her chin. "My wish is to have you. With you by my side, all my dreams will come true." Before Layla could respond, the crown prince had already pulled her tightly back into his embrace. By now, the carriage had arrived at the gates of the royal palace. The crown prince gently lifted Layla out of the carriage. A group of maids was already lined up outside, waiting for their arrival. With their attentive care, Layla enjoyed a fragrant, luxurious bubble bath. It was the first time in her life she had ever felt this clean. When she appeared before the crown prince again, her stunning beauty left him momentarily speechless, unable to look away. The elegant gown she wore highlighted her flawless features, and even her skin seemed to glow with a soft, radiant luster. Snapping out of his daze, the crown prince finally remembered to invite Layla to sit. Then, with a calm demeanor, he formally introduced himself. "As you can see, I am the master of this palace, and the first in line to the throne, Vyast." Layla had already guessed he was someone important the moment she saw the grandeur of the palace. But hearing his true identity still left her utterly stunned. If she had known he was the crown prince, she would never have agreed to come here. Her cautious, guarded expression amused Vyast. He chuckled and asked, "So, do you think I'm a bad person?" Layla's cheeks instantly flushed red. To her, this man was nothing but kind and caring. Her bashful look tugged at his heart. He gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear and whispered, "You look absolutely stunning today." Her face turned crimson in an instant, too flustered to even meet his gaze. Her heart was pounding uncontrollably. She knew he was probably just saying sweet things to comfort her. Yet after hearing it so many times, she couldn't help but start to believe it. Maybe she really was someone worthy of being treated like a noble lady. That night, before falling asleep, Layla, still gripped by unease, couldn't help but ask the maid, "Didn't you smell the stench on me?" The maid nodded honestly and said she had. Layla's heart skipped a beat. "Then why didn't you scream or insult me?" she asked, voice trembling. Everyone else who smelled her before had cursed her, even tried to burn her alive. But this maid showed no disgust. The maid looked at her with genuine compassion. "Taking care of you is not only our duty, it's an honor." For a brief moment, it felt like the darkness in Layla's life was finally giving way to light. But someone raised in shadows doesn't embrace the sun so easily. The next morning, the maid came in to wake Layla for breakfast. But as she opened the door, she found the spacious room completely empty. "Layla, had vanished.